Vicksburg National Military Park, what we call our main unit here in Vicksburg, Mississippi, represents a culmination of an 18-month campaign and eventual siege in the spring of 1863. When you go through the park now, it's approximately 16 miles of tour road, and there's over approximately 1,500 monuments and plaques and markers here in the military park, including monumentation from some of the preeminent artists and sculptors of the early 20th century. In the background, you can probably see the Illinois Monument. That's the largest, most conspicuous monument in the park. And that's a spot almost all visitors will stop at. One of the highlights of this particular area, this is the largest concentration of Union artillery during the siege. We call it 20 gun or battery to Goliard. This is where Ulysses S. Grant had most of his guns, bombarding the Confederate lines during that 47-day siege. About 1,500 yards in this direction. Also, as you make your way through the park, what we call our halfway point, at the conclusion of the Union tour, 8 miles in, you'll come across the USS Cairo. Unlike other Civil War parks throughout the country, we have a gunboat, and it's a remarkable shape. So that's my favorite part. And when you go see that wonderful resource we have here at the military park, it's in such good shape because when it sank, it went into the muddy, silty water of the Yazoo River and was covered with mud for a little over 100 years. So when they brought that time capsule up, cleared away all the sediment and the mud, we had a wonderful example of a real Civil War ironclad. Seeing these battlefields, especially the ones administered by the National Park Service, Vicksburg is very popular because it is arguably one of the most important battles in the American Civil War. Once Vicksburg falls in the early summer of 1863, this spells the death knell for the Confederacy for what we call the War in the West. No longer will the Confederates enjoy supplies, including arms, munitions, personnel, salt, and beef coming up through the blockade into Mexico, through Texas and Louisiana, across the river at Vicksburg, and issued and transferred to points east of us, including even Robert E. Lee's army operating in the Eastern Theater of Operations. So that's why Vicksburg is so important and why people come here, because there's just so much that takes place. Nearly 100,000 troops that are involved on both sides, what we call the combined combatants from the Union and the Confederate armies. And it's probably the best example of an early siege. There are things that happened here in Vicksburg that were repeated in Petersburg, Virginia, later in the war by Ulysses S. Grant once again, and also carried in to World War I in the trenches of Europe. The Mississippi River in the American Civil War, I should say, in the 19th century, was the greatest economic interest in North America. Almost all commerce from the Midwest of the United States was coming down to the coast to New Orleans on the Mississippi River. And when the Civil War breaks out in 1861, the Mississippi River retains this paramount importance. The Confederates will fortify key points along the river, including Vicksburg, Mississippi, with its high bluffs and that hairpin turn in the river. President Lincoln, General Grant, all recognized this. So did Jefferson Davis and John C. Pemberton, the Confederate commander here during the siege of Vicksburg, recognized and appreciated the paramount importance of this stronghold and how they had to hold it or take it. There was so much money coming through the merchants here in Vicksburg prior to the American Civil War. As a matter of fact, Vicksburg, along with Natchez or Adams County to the south of us, voted against secession in 1861 because they recognized the importance of the affluency and all the money and the commerce that they were enjoying here. They realized very quickly that would be lost immediately if secession was indeed ratified. It remained important because it was that quote-unquote Gibraltar of the Confederacy, this stronghold that was thought to be virtually impregnable by the Union Navy, failing to run afraid to run the batteries initially. It wasn't until Grant and Admiral Porter in 1863 that they successfully ran these batteries and got south of Vicksburg. Our COVID mitigation efforts are first and foremost social distancing. As you go out throughout the park, you'll notice signage reminding folks of our mitigation efforts, our protocols, if you will, to maintain social distancing. We suggest wearing masks when you're near other visitors. Unfortunately, right now, our facilities are closed, including restrooms. So when you visit Vicksburg National Military Park during our COVID protocols or mitigation efforts, all you're going to be able to do is use it as a recreational venue. You can use the tour road. It's open 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., free of charge. You can use it to drive, or you can use it to walk, run, or cycle. We encourage you to get out, recreate responsibly, and enjoy this national park. It's still a great place to get outdoors with your friends and family, get some fresh air, and enjoy the little bit of American history. Vicksburg is the key to the South.